All right, guys, welcome back. So we are starting the first chapter, or first section of chapter 2, all right? So you should have just taken your summative for chapter 1. Remember, I know this is new to you, so just a reminder, say you didn't get the grade that you wanted for your summative grade, all right? You can pick half the test, a few sections on the test to completely redo, get full credit, not half credit, get full credit back, and it'll change your grade for the summative, no penalty. All right, so make sure if you didn't get the grade that you wanted, or if you know for a fact that you just made a silly mistake and you can fix it, take advantage of that, do the mastery. You just have to find some time to stay with me after school or even during lunch, okay? So yeah, take advantage of that. Second, before we start notes, make sure that you are taking notes during these, okay? I don't care if you watch the videos, and I'm going to say that every single time, all right? That is the biggest thing that I hear every year is, well, I watched the video, I just didn't take notes. Well, you don't get credit if I don't see the notes, all right? I want everything written down. If I go too fast, pause the video, okay? Or yell at me the next day and tell me that I need to start slowing down, all right? So we are going to start the first section, and the first section is just a lot of definitions, okay? So we're going to start really digging into proofs a lot towards the end of this section, but in order to do proofs, you need the different rules and the different theorems that you can use in order to prove things, okay? So the things that we already know for a fact. So we're going to start looking at parallel lines, all right? We have different types of relationships of angles when we know that two lines are parallel. So in this diagram that you see on the right that's in red, okay, we are assuming, so these, I'm going to use a different color. These arrows right here, okay, when there's arrows like that in the middle of the line, okay, and they're on two different lines, what that means is that those lines are parallel. Okay, so we are assuming, and we're told, that line L and line M are parallel to each other. When that happens, we have what we call a transversal. So this right here, oh, I want purple. That right there, we call that a transversal. Okay, and what that means is it's just a line that goes through two other lines. That's all that means. It's just a fancy word for it. Okay, and when that situation happens, so when you have two parallel lines that are both intersected by the same line, we end up with these four types of relationships over here. So the first one we're going to talk about is corresponding angles. Okay, and I'm going to simplify the definitions because you don't need to know the real one. Okay, corresponding angles are the angles that are in the same spots. Okay, what that means is when I look at this, I've got angle 2 and I've got angle 6, okay, and you can tell they're both in the upper left corner. If they're in the upper left corner, what we know about them is that they are equal. Okay, so in this situation, angles 2 and angle 6 are going to be equal. So I'm going to write the pairs here. So we've got angle 2 and angle 6. All right, we've also got angle 1 and angle 5, angle 3 and angle 7, and angle 4 and angle 8. Okay, all of those pairs are corresponding angles. So again, same spot, and when that happens, we know that they're going to be equal. So if I tell you that angle 2 is 78 degrees, I can also automatically assume that angle 6 is also 78 degrees. Okay, so let's get rid of that. The next one we're going to talk about is alternate interior. So the next two are going to be pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so we know that alternate means opposite. Okay, we know interior means on the inside. Okay, so let me erase these blue lines. Okay, so alternate interior is going to be the angles on the inside that are on opposite sides. Okay, so opposite sides of that transversal, but on the inside of the parallel lines. Okay, so I'm going to write that. So alternate interior, inside the parallel lines, and opposite sides of the transversal. Okay, so if I write out on the side which angles those are, it's going to be angles 3 an angle 5, an angle 6, an angle 4, okay? And what we know about those is, again, they are going to be equal. Okay, so far we've got corresponding angles are equal and alternate interior angles are equal. All right, the next two, erase these blue lines. Okay, so next one is alternate exterior. So again, alternate means opposite, exterior means outside. Okay, so what that means is that we are going to look at exterior outside the parallel lines, but still opposite sides of the transversal. Okay, so we're going to say outside the parallel lines and still opposite sides of the transversal. Okay, so if I write out my pairs for that, it's going to be, we already marked angle 1 and angle 7. And then we've also got angle 2 and angle 8. All right, and again, those are going to be equal as well. So if I tell you that angle 2 is 78 degrees, I can also tell you that angle 8 is 78 degrees. So if it gives us one of them, we can automatically assume that the other one's the same. And then the last one that we have, this one's a little tricky just because, wow, that was a terrible straight line. Just because it's the only one that's not equal. So all of these theorems tell us that the angles are equal except for the consecutive interior. Okay, so we know when we talk about numbers being consecutive, that means they come one right after each other, right? Okay, so when I look at this, a consecutive interior angle, interior means it has to be on the inside, but consecutive means it's going to have to be on the same side. Okay, so when I talk about consecutive interior angles, they're angles that are on the inside of the parallel lines, but on the same side of the transversal. Okay, and remember I said that these are not equal. What we know about these ones is that they are supplementary. Okay, what that means is if I tell you that angle 4 is 100 degrees, angle 5 is going to be 80 degrees, because remember, supplementary means they add up to 180 degrees, right? Okay, so those are the 4 properties that we're going to talk about. We've got corresponding angles, which are angles that are in the same spot. Alternate interior means on the inside but opposite sides. Alternate exterior is opposite sides but on the outside. And consecutive interior is the same side on the inside. Okay, so what does a question like this look like? So on your homework and on the practice that we do in class, it's going to look something like this. It's going to give you 2 parallel lines, and remember the reason that we know that they are parallel is because of those arrows right there. Okay, so we know for a fact that they're parallel, and it's going to give you one angle, and it's going to say solve for all of the other angles. So we've got to solve where all of these question marks are, which seems like a lot since they only give you one, right? And there's multiple ways that you can do this. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is, we know that using the corresponding angles, that the same spot as this one right here is going to be equal. So that means that this angle right here is going to be 138. Okay? And then from here, you can go so many different ways. You can use alternate interior and exterior. Okay, so if we use alternate interior, we know that this is going to be 138. If we use alternate exterior, I can look at this angle and say, okay, that's on the outside, so opposite on the outside is going to be this one. So that's going to be 138. Okay, and then I can use consecutive interior to say these two right here, why are my lines not straight today? These two right here, that one and that one, are going to add up to 180. Okay, so if I do 180 minus 138, that's going to give me 42. Okay, so this angle right here is 42. And then I could do the same thing to find this angle right here. Or I can say, well, since I have this one right here, alternate interior would tell me that this one right here has to be equal to it. Okay, so now the only ones we have to find are this one and this one. All right, now I'm going to mention an old rule that we learned a little bit ago, okay? Vertical angles. That means when two lines cross, the angles that are across from each other are equal. So if I know that this angle right here in the bottom left is 42, then this one has to be 42. And the same thing here. Or I could have used corresponding angles and said that this angle has to be equal to this angle, so it has to be 42. All right, see, there's so many different ways for you guys to use the rules above and even use rules that we've already learned when it comes to vertical angles and supplementary angles. The biggest struggle that you guys are going to have for this is the fact that there's not one concrete way to do it. All right, all of you in class, if you all do the same problem, you could all do it different ways and not one person do it the same way. But that also gives you more freedom to not necessarily have to memorize every single rule and every single theorem. Okay, I could have gotten through this problem with only using 2 different theorems. I could have used corresponding and I could have used supplementary angles, and I would have ended up getting all of the angles. Okay, so again, when you come into class tomorrow, okay, make sure you have these definitions, these 4 definitions up here. So the 4 I'm starring, those 4 definitions are going to be super important and super helpful for you when you start out the practice problems. Okay, eventually you'll get to the point where it'll become second nature and you'll see the question and you'll know what to do and you won't need them. But the first few problems, it's going to be really good for you to have that piece of paper next to you, have the definitions, and be able to go, okay, I've got this and I know they're equal. I've got this and I know they're supplementary. Okay, so make sure you write notes. If you had questions throughout this, or if there's a spot where I lost you, make sure you put a star next to it, highlight it, do something to it, bold it. That way you come into class tomorrow and you can remember to ask those questions at the beginning. All right, so have your notes tomorrow and we will start practicing this.